Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. In today's video, we are going to be working with some new products from Altenew. I was totally drawn in by this rose garden birdhouse, and so I'm going to be using that, the cardinal love dies, the berry branch, and then these sentiments, super generously sized, really, really nice size. These are the Timeless Sentiments 3, and I'm super excited because this is the first time that I'm getting to use their new cardstock. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some other things as well. Before we get too far into the video, while I'm showing you all of these really beautiful colors, I do want to mention to you that Altenew very, very generously gave me a code so that you guys could get a little free gift if you place an order. So it's good through tomorrow night, August 31st at 11:59 Eastern. This is it. It's a little zippered pouch. So it's a mesh pouch bag that is encased in plastic and has a nice little like faux leather top. It's really nicely sized. I think it's 13 by just shy of like 9.5. So they're great to, put projects in that maybe you need to like clean off your desk and kind of set aside but don't want to lose your pieces parts. They're great to take on the go with you. I do have a couple of them that I use. So if you are planning on making a purchase and you add the zippered pouch to your bag, to your cart, if you put in the code is free for Kelly. And I'll have all that information down below, linked on YouTube. But you can get yourself a free little gift. Isn't that fun? I thought so. Plus, it's very fitting because tomorrow's my birthday and the sale runs through like literally the end of my birthday. I don't think Altenew knew it was my birthday, but it does make it a little bit fun. So let's talk about what we're making here. We're making three different cards with the same products, which you guys know I already love doing because I like stretching what I can get. And this little rose garden birdhouse just totally sucked me right in. I love anything with florals on it. It's so stinking cute. So it does have, these are the Altenew blending brushes we're going to be using. They have a couple of different sizes. And I showed you all of the inks while I was like yammering on about the free gift. Priorities, people, because I'm a cheap chicken. So anything free, I'm like, yeah, let's talk about that. They do have, and they started doing this with their fresh dye inks, like the round ones. They're coming out in like families, so that they all work really nicely together. If you remember, I'm sure they probably still do it, but I was never a stamp layering girly. Back in the day, when layering stamps were really, really popular, Altenew was kind of on the forefront of that and creating really beautiful florals. They kind of stamped one on top of the other with getting really, really realistic results. And so now that they are, they're releasing these color families, that they will work well together if you're doing stamping like that. Or in this case, we're doing stenciling. So I used the 3D embossing folder to emboss just some white cardstock. And then I chose the, I'm sure it has a really cool name because all of them do. They have like the best, coolest names. But it's the red family. And so I chose to use the red family to do my ink blending. And then because also I'm going to use the cardinals with it, and cardinals are red birds. So I thought that would work really nicely for them to make nice as far as like the color palette goes. So speaking of the color families, like if you are like me, okay, and you love a matchy look, which I do. I love when things match, when they all look nicely together. And hands down, I've worked with a lot of people in the industry, And oh, here I just wanted to show you like how easily these inks wipe off. So they don't stain the stencils. I'd be willing to bet they probably would if you left them sit there, but if you clean them up right away, even the darker colors like this one, I will butcher the names of this. They're so fancy with their names. I am not fancy. Rhodolite, that's what it looks like to me. You know, if we're sounding out phonetics, hooked on phonics, all that jazz. That's what I think it says, but I could be wrong. It is a darker red. It can look a little bit more on the brown side. So in order to make sure I was going to be happy with it being like more of a burgundy, I did go back over it with that cherry sweet, which, I mean, I do this a lot with inks and things. Like if I want them to... If I'm looking for a specific color, then I will just layer a couple of different colors together until I get what I want. So yeah, so there's that. What were we talking about? Anybody? Oh, the colors. Yeah, I like when everything is matchy-matchy. So, Altenew, nobody in the industry does packaging as well as Altenew does it. Like, I think I've said this before, and that's, I don't mean any, like, hate towards anybody else, because I love their packaging, too. They're all very nice. But, I mean, you want to talk, like, hits it out of the park home run every time. Like, Altenew's packaging is spot on. It's so good. They give you these little booklets, like with your stamps and stuff, that you can open up, and it will give you all of these ideas on how to use them. It's so amazing. But that is one of the nice things about having the color families. You know, you can buy them individually. You don't have to buy them in color families. But if you are buying in color families, it makes it so that you're going to have a light, a medium, a dark, and a very dark, or a, super light, light, a medium, and a dark. You're definitely going to have an array of colors that will get you some dimension. Now, with that said, I did use the, what is this? It's the Honeydew Glow, the Antique Olive, the Olove. I think that's how you say it. Olove. That's how it's spelled, people. Don't shoot the messenger. And then the Sugar Kelp is more of a yellow-green, which if you guys watch my channel, you know I super dig on a yellow-green. But I wanted there to be variation in the greenery. And so I did bring in some evergreen just to switch up kind of the green tones. So I did some of the leaves really, really light with just the first like 3 colors, the Honeydew, the Antique Olive, and the Olove. And then the next one I started with the Antique Olive, the Olove, and then the Sugar Kelp, and then we brought in the evergreen. So anyway, just the point is you can mix and match them even if they do come together as families. For the birdhouse itself, I wanted to use neutrals. And so I went in with, I don't even know if these are part of the same color family. I just have them. I went in with some sand dune and some espresso. And the nice thing about these smaller blending brushes is, especially if you're a person who's like really into layering stencils, it makes it so you don't have to mask everything off, because you're not going to be getting your ink everywhere. You're just going to be getting it in those little spaces. But the downside of it is sometimes it does take a little bit more time to get really saturated color. So you're kind of like trading the convenience of not having to mask and all of that stuff for the ability to just kind of, or the non-ability to not be able to get it done maybe as quickly. You could, of course, mask these and use a bigger brush if you wanted to. So once I got that done, I did want it to be a bit more solid, and I wanted to make sure that the sand dune and the espresso were going to work well together. So once I got the espresso down to be as dark as I wanted it, I went over it with the sand dune just to make sure that the tone was going to be the same. This stencil right here is the one that I had the hardest time lining up, and it is the stems or the vines of the greenery. So I kind of like painstakingly went over it to see like where it needed to line up. And I pretty quickly realized after I moved it that it didn't actually matter. I didn't have to be so particular because you really couldn't even tell. So anyway, that's that. The packaging, they do really great packaging, but all of their stuff matches. And so when we're talking about the card stocks, I was super excited when they said that they were going to be releasing their own card stocks, because I know like literally all of their stuff matches, whether it's the inks, to the embellishments, to the like watercolor pens or pencils, the pan watercolors, like they are all matchy. So you don't have to wonder whether or not their products will work together, because they 100% will. They absolutely will. And so that is something that's really nice, especially if you're either new to this hobby and you're like, I don't know what colors will go together, because, I feel a little inexperienced, or I feel a little not as confident. Here, by the way, see how I didn't even notice the rest of the stencil? I'm like trying to get the darker one in, and then here's where I realized, like, genius, just use the second part of the stencil that's doing all of the stuff you're trying to do freehand. Oh, God loves a trier. Anyway, so I do really think that that's kind of nice if you are not as confident. It is also really nice if you're if you have a project in mind where maybe you're making multiples, like you don't have to worry about whether or not your your card stocks are going to match your ink or any of those things. So here, now that I have everything stenciled down, this is not one of the new colors, but it is one that I've had for a while, and it's part of one of my favorite color families is blue. I know you're shocked. And this one is called Arctic. It is the lightest one in this particular color family, but I am going to use it to create some sky. Basically, I'm just going to go in super light-handed and do a couple of different areas, just adding in a little bit of blue. So it looks like, we have a little bit of a scene, like maybe this is sitting a little bit higher up in the tree. Now, I did not use this birdhouse by itself. I did combine it with other things. However, I did see some samples where people did use the birdhouse solo, and you totally can. This one also doesn't, it uses the 3D embossing folder and the stencils, but you could get just the stencils and still get the same look. This one also has a die, which we will use for one of the other cards, but again, you don't need that. So here, because I can never leave well enough alone, I just can't help myself, I did go in with my artist Altenew markers. These are like the kind of yellowish browns from the, which one is it? I think it's the water garden one. And I'm just kind of going in, adding a little bit of added detail with that, highlighting that wood grain that's embossed in there, and then adding in just some shadows to kind of help it pop. Because I am more comfortable with markers. That is kind of like my go-to. You could do this by spending a little bit more time with your ink blending. I just, it's just more comfortable for me to do it with markers. And you could also do this, with pencils, or if you were working on watercolor paper, you could, you could ink blend over it and then go in with some darker pigmented watercolors and add some details. That would all work. So because I really wanted to show that you can use this without anything else, I am going to just freehand my little branch. As you can see, there is not a lot of effort being put in here. Just basically, using a very little pressure, adding kind of some sticks, you know, some little branches that are growing off my branch. I'm going to take up a little bit up the kind of left-hand side there to give the illusion of the rest of the tree. And then in order to help fill it out a little bit more, I am going to use a green. Now, these ones are from the Firewood Garden. So if you took my, what was it called? Colorful Expressions, the Wonder of Artist Markers. I did a class for Altenew, and if you took that class, then you would already have that marker set because it was part of the kit. But I used the greens from there. However, you know, you may not even want to do the same color scheme. Use whatever you got. You guys know. So once I was done with that, I was like, okay, I'm going to finish this up and set it aside because I wasn't going to add really anything else to it except for a sentiment. That's not how it ended up going, but I do think that this card could be carried just the way it is by adding a sentiment. And this backer piece, by the way, is Cloudy Sky. This is one of the new colors. And, oh, I should mention, like they have, what do they have? They said it, and I don't remember what it is. Do you remember what it is? I think it's like 80 some colors of the new cardstocks. And no, I'm 27. It's 27, Kelly. Girl, I did not have my facts straight. But anywho, so they have 27 colors, but they will have more come out. So now we're moving on to the birds. What I'm showing you here is see how they have all different weights, 88, 84, 80, 90. That is something that we're going to come back to and talk about. I just want to talk about the die cutting first. So I have the coral berry, the jet black, the vanilla. What is the vanilla? It's vanilla something. And then I also used Forest Glade, and this one is the one I used for the branch is Sicilian Amber. And I specifically chose these colors because I am cheap. You guys know this. If you've been around, I mean, we've been doing this for quite some time now. I am a cheap chicken. And so the reason I chose the colors that I chose is because I would be able to color them. And the dies, as you saw, like the dies are all one piece for the cardinals. So when you cut it, you cut them all, you get all the pieces out of black, all the pieces out of red, all the pieces out of cream. But I wanted to be able to make more than just one bird from all of those pieces. That is why I chose that lighter color. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. If I wanted to make just one bird, I would just cut it out of white and color it. But that's me. It is faster if you do it out of colored cardstock. So let's talk about what I'm actually doing here. So this is the berry branch. Love this. I think it's a really super versatile thing. And basically, your leaves are your base layer. Your berries get cut and then adhered directly to the leaf layer, and then your branch layer sits on top, and it will give you your cute little berry branch. And I know that this is kind of maybe leans more towards holiday kind of feel, but berries are not just holiday. So this one is a really versatile one. It's a good one to have. You know, if you like working with dies and building those things, we're going to use one of them with a cardinal for kind of like a Christmas card. And then we're going to use the other one to help us fill in a scene. What am I doing here? Well, I'm not leaving well enough alone. That's what I'm doing. I like adding dimension. I like coloring my die cuts. Not that it's not pretty without it. It is. I think it's just a little bit, it's like doing the most when you add some color to it. So that is what I am doing. And this particular color set is from the very first set of artist markers. It has a name, but I just know it as set A because that's how long I've been using them. But that's the red combination from that particular set. And we're just adding in some shadows into those berries. I did not color in the leaves because honestly I forgot. And then once I went to go do the berries on the other branch is when it dawned on me that I didn't add any extra shading to the leaves. So I forgot, but only for a little bit. We will revisit it. Here's the other thing that I wanted to talk about, which is the first time I'm getting to use this. And that is this keyhole technology that Altenew is using. I've seen them talk about it, like I've seen the videos on it, but this is the first time I'm really getting to use it. And once we're done, I'm gonna zoom in here. Do you see that open triangle on my cardinal? So I'm gluing them down. That open triangle is on all of the pieces except for the top layer. Excuse my dogs, they have no manners. Okay, back to business. So they have those little triangles, and all of the pieces have triangles except for the top layer. And so what that means is, instead of having to kind of figure out where your die cuts need to layer, you just line up that triangle. And you can see the other cardinal, because like they're part of the same set, they actually have a different shape. So the cardinal on the right has a keyhole instead of a triangle. So you know when you're die cutting them, like let's say I did die cut them all out of white, then I know that the triangle pieces go with this cardinal and the keyhole pieces go with that cardinal. So it makes it really, really user-friendly. So here, if you guys have watched my videos before where we do the layering dies, you know that I'm always adding shading. This is no different. The only difference is this time I am like kind of adding the shading as I'm going, like gluing them down and then adding the shading. And that is because it's all the same color. Like the only other color incorporated into this bird is black, and I don't have to worry about going over top of that. So here I have that kind of vanilla layer on the bottom. I'm going to color over that with some reds. I tried the belly with the lightest kind of pink color. That did not track. It was a little too orange. And so I did go back in with some darker reds. And then as I just keep layering up those little triangles, making sure that they all meet up, that I know where all of my pieces are going, I am just continually adding shading. Again, this is something that I frequently say when we talk about markers. I always use a brush nib. But can I tell you how handy that little bullet nib was when I was going in and coloring these smaller dies? Like, that was so handy to kind of get in all of the little nooks and crannies. I still did use my brush tip for some of the blending and things, like to get the strokes and the feathers, but trying to get it like right up against the other piece of cardstock and there was no gapping, and making sure that my shadow color was really in there, those little bullet tips were quite helpful. So yeah, that's something else that something else to just note. So we're going to go through and, build these up. This cardinal I am showing to you in a lot closer to regular time. It is sped up slightly, just for the sake of time. The other one, I am going to speed up quite a bit. So don't forget that you have tools in YouTube to slow that down if you need to. I would mute the video. Otherwise, I'm going to sound really, really silly. But you can slow that down if you need to see it a bit slower. And yeah, that's just, and then when I put together the second ones, I did not film those, but basically I just flip-flop all the pieces. So like in this one, I used the base layer as the vanilla, and then I colored it in red. For the other one, I used my base layer as red, and then my wing layers were all vanilla, and I just colored them in. And I mean, I can't really tell too much of a difference. Maybe the ones that are on the coral berry are slightly less bright. You know what I mean? They're maybe a bit more muted, which isn't a bad thing. But other than that, I think they match pretty well. Because I was just like, I'm not going to cut all these and then just throw them away. Like, I cannot. And then even the pieces that I cut out of black, I put them back into the packaging because maybe I'll have a scene, that's a night scene and I want to use them as a silhouette. And then I'll already have the black ones cut. So here, this little mask portion of his face is black. Now, mind you, as I'm building these, the layering guide is on the back of your package. So I just flip it over. I set it off to the left-hand side so that I could look at it and see what I needed my next layer to be. And it was really easy to follow. So here I'm adding some shading around that kind of mask. And then the only part that was a little bit like, what is happening? Was that little eyeball. And you'll see with this one, so I'm getting his little beak on. His beak is 2 layers. And I just did what I didn't look up, what their beaks look like. I just went with what the layering guide said, which was kind of like a little bit of a darker red. I think it was fine. But if you wanted to switch that up and like maybe change it to the color of the feet, that would probably be okay too. But so I lucked out with this eyeball because it is a very tiny piece. Because I put down the little dot of glue. And then you can't even see, can you even see it? Can you even see my little eyeball? And then I picked it up with my finger and it fell almost directly into the glue. And then I was able to use my tweezers to place it. This is the only one that worked for. So for this one in which I played around with it a little bit more. You'll see there's like a fade out because I cut out the parts that took me forever to get the eyeball where I wanted it. For the other two, because I did not have a light color, now I used both of the vanillas for this one. I just used a white gel pen. And honestly, going forward, that's probably what I'm going to do because it was a lot easier and I wasn't having to chase down little pieces parts because you guys know how I feel about that. That's not my jam. But these really came together pretty easily. And that's what I want to talk about, the weight of the cardstock. So I told you, like they're different weights. They're 80, they're 84, they're 88. And so this is not necessarily as thick as some other cardstocks that are on the market. Like I think Hero Arts are like 100, Spellbinders are like 100 to 110. Gina K's, I think hers are all heavyweight 110. But let me tell you why this actually can be a good thing. If you are a person who likes dyes like this, where we have lots of layers and it really, brings together the whole thing, having a little bit of a thinner paper, one will give you a better blend of your markers because I color on Neenah 80-pound solar white cardstock. Here's where we're going to go on with those greens. Originally, I pulled 3 out, and then I realized very quickly that middle color was absolutely not necessary. So I ditched it, and I had a dark and a light. But anyway, I color on Neenah 80-pound solar white cardstock. So that's my go-to for everything. And I use it because it blends better in the fibers of the paper. So if you're like me and you're going to be going in with your artist markers and you're going to be adding in lots of color, then an 80-pound is going to be great. The other thing that it's great for is when you're layering these up, like let me see, I'm going to count. I didn't count it at the time. Oh, on those little keyholes, I forgot to tell you there's numbers next to them so you know which ones go with which. Super helpful. So this one cardinal has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, no, 9 layers. That's I counted the completed picture. Has 9 layers, which, they're all good size. They're not like, little, except for that eyeball. That eyeball is tiny. But, it's layer on layer on layer. Well, if you're having layer on layer on layer of 110-pound cardstock, you're going to have a die cut that's like a 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch thick. Like that's a lot of paper. So having some that are a little bit thinner isn't necessarily a bad thing. So I just wanted to address that. And just with that, if you're a person who likes thinner or you like thicker, just make sure you're looking when you're ordering off the website. So for the sentiments, that peace and joy down at the bottom is from that Timeless Sentiments 3. I told you they were generously sized. I was not kidding around. They are a good size. And there's a lot of good ones in there. They could be used for holidays, but also used for other things like, good news, grateful, do good, and then shine bright. There's a lot of good ones, and they're a good size. The other ones are from, what are they from? The XO and More. I use that one a lot. And then the Versatile Greetings too. I've used that one before as well. So here, with the script ones, I just added a little cast shadow because the actual shadow was just a little bit too much. So this is the one that we already put together, and I did decide to go ahead and put a cardinal on it. And that's it. It's not die cut, it's the 3D embossing and then stenciled, and then I just added that little cardinal. I think he's so cute. For this one I am going to mount on foam tape just like we did with the last one. And I do have that Arctic kind of ink blended in the background. And this is just going to be the little cardinal with the berry cluster. So you could, go a couple of different ways with this. I decided to go with the peace and joy, very, very Christmas-like. You could add snow or glitters to the berries, to the bird, and really kind of, make it super shine. The last one is the one that kind of has them all together. So it has two birds, it has the house, embossed, stenciled, die cut, and then the berries also. I cut the berry branch apart so that way I could just fill in the scene. And so I used the larger part of the branch down at the bottom, and then some also behind the birdhouse. The birdhouse is going to be popped up over top. So this is the only one that doesn't have a popped up background where the elements are actually popped up. And I really like the way that this came out. I think that these could absolutely be spring, summer, or winter. You could probably even make them fall if you switched up the colors of the roses. I think they're really great. The cardinals have this thicker kind of trunk, and I am using those as well. So this time I'm not drawing in my tree. I'm using the dies that are given to me. And so that white portion of the birdhouse die cut doesn't stand out. I am blending that in with some markers. You can see very little of that once we get the birds in place. But that is something that I do, just to help everything kind of blend together. I didn't do it with the rest of the background because my background is so light. I didn't really think it needed it, but you absolutely could. And then we're just going to put on our little cardinals. They are sitting on top of that foam tape that's underneath the house. So the only place that I needed to put foam tape was they just needed a little bit under their tushies. So under their little tail feathers, I did have to kind of slide in a little piece of foam on both of the birds just so that they would be flush. I'm going to add some shimmer to my flowers as well as my little birds, and then some white highlights with my gel pen, and then some black enamel dots, and we're done. So I just want to remind you in case, also they have a sale section that's 45% off that updates every week. You can't combine this with any other codes. So if you make a purchase and you want the free little zip carrier bag, which is super cute and helpful, you want to do the free for Kelly code, but that's the only code that you can use. And that again is good until tomorrow night, August 31st at midnight Eastern time. So I hope that this inspired you guys. I hope it gave you a good look at the cardstocks and the key mechanism, and get you inspired to kind of start making some fall and winter products. Thank you so much for joining me. I always appreciate your time, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.